Sometimes, the stories that surround Hollywood are filled with drama that never makes it onto the screen. And when it comes to Nancy Kulp and Buddy Ebsen, their story is one of those that makes you want to lean in just a little closer. Before the Beverly Hillbillies ever threw these two into the same spotlight, their lives were already packed with experiences that could fill entire books. But here's the thing. What happened before that iconic show really sets the stage for the tension that would simmer between them later on. Let's start with Nancy. She wasn't your typical Hollywood star. Born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Nancy was the only child of Robert and Marjorie Kulp. Her father was a traveling salesman, always on the move, while her mother balanced teaching with eventually becoming a school principal. Nancy grew up in an environment where structure and education were everything, and by the time she was still quite young, she moved to Miami. By 1943, she had already earned a degree in journalism, seeming set for a life behind the pen, not in front of the camera. But Nancy's path wasn't a straight shot. At first, she worked as a writer for the Miami Beach Tropics, a local paper, where she got to interview big names like Clark Gable and even the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Not exactly small potatoes, right? Then, when World War II came calling, Nancy didn't hesitate. She left her studies to join the U.S. Naval Reserve, earning the rank of lieutenant while serving her country. This was the kind of young woman Nancy Kulp was, determined and patriotic. Now, let's flip the coin and turn our attention to Buddy Ebsen. Born and raised in Orlando, Florida, Buddy had dreams of becoming a dancer. He and his sister Vilma toured on the vaudeville circuit, billed as the Baby Astairs. Buddy had this easy, laid-back charm that audiences loved. But Buddy's rise to fame wasn't without its struggles. After moving to New York with barely enough money to buy a sandwich, Buddy knew he had to hustle. And hustle he did. Broadway came calling, and soon Hollywood was following suit. He landed roles in musicals, danced alongside Shirley Temple, and even worked with Walt Disney himself, helping to animate Mickey Mouse's iconic movements. But life wasn't always that magical. One of the most dramatic moments in Buddy's career came when he was cast as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. Sounds like a dream role, right? Not quite. The makeup used on Buddy contained aluminum dust, which caused a severe reaction, nearly killing him and forcing him to be hospitalized. The role was eventually given to another actor. After that, Buddy shifted gears, taking on other roles, including teaching naval officers during World War II. Buddy was easygoing on the surface, but life had thrown him more than a few curveballs. Now, picture these two individuals, Nancy, with her structured upbringing and sharp wit, and Buddy, a charming, reliable actor with a history of hard knocks. By the time the 1950s rolled around, both had arrived in Hollywood. Nancy had been married, but that marriage didn't last, and she took a job in MGM's publicity department. It was there that a director noticed her and thought she had the right look for acting. Soon, she was landing small roles in TV shows like I Love Lucy and Maverick. Though she wasn't playing leading lady parts, Nancy had a knack for stealing the spotlight with her quick humor and no-nonsense attitude. Meanwhile, Buddy was carving out his place in television, known for his folksy, down-to-earth roles. He quickly built a reputation as someone audiences could count on. Though he came across as laid-back, Buddy was seen as the kind of actor who could be trusted to give a solid performance. By the late 1950s, both Nancy and Buddy were building their careers in the competitive world of television, and though they weren't yet working together, their paths were starting to cross. Nancy was earning a reputation as a smart and hardworking actress. She was known for her strong opinions and wasn't afraid to speak her mind. Buddy, on the other hand, was known for being more traditional, perhaps even a bit old-fashioned. Both were chasing opportunities wherever they could find them. Nancy's roles tended to focus on quirky characters, while Buddy bounced between westerns, dramas, and even playing villains in shows like Gunsmoke and Maverick. By the early 1960s, both had made their mark in Hollywood, but neither had found their big breakthrough yet. That was all about to change, thanks to the Beverly Hillbillies. When a show hit television screens, it was like a rocket launching into the stratosphere. Audiences couldn't get enough of the Clampetts, a simple backwoods family suddenly thrust into the glitz of Beverly Hills. The show was funny, charming, and a little ridiculous, and it quickly became a favorite. And right at the heart of it all were Nancy Kulp and Buddy Ebsen. The creators of the Beverly Hillbillies knew they needed someone special to play Jane Hathaway, the efficient, bird-watching secretary working for Mr. Drysdale, the Clampetts' banker. Nancy Kulp was the perfect choice. As for Buddy, by the time the show came around, he was a well-known face in Hollywood, with a reputation for playing warm, fatherly characters. The role of Jed Clampett, the common-sense patriarch of the Clampett family, was a natural fit for him. When the show premiered, it became an instant hit. The Clampetts' clash with Beverly Hills society was hilarious, and Nancy's portrayal of Miss Jane, the smart, loyal secretary, became a standout. She was the kind of character viewers could relate to, hardworking, well-meaning, and caught up in the antics of the eccentric Clampett family. In fact, her performance earned her an Emmy nomination. Buddy's portrayal of Jed was just as iconic. As the steady, calm patriarch of the family, Jed was the glue holding the Clampetts together. His famous catchphrase, "Well, doggies," became part of American pop culture, and viewers loved seeing him navigate the absurdities of Beverly Hills with a calm demeanor and common sense. It's no wonder the show was so successful, drawing in millions of viewers every week. But here's where the story takes a turn. On screen, Nancy and Buddy's characters had a warm, friendly relationship, but off-screen, the tension between them was palpable. This wasn't a simple clash of acting styles or a difference in professional opinions. No, this tension ran much deeper. Their personalities and, more importantly, their political views clashed in a way that made working together uncomfortable at times. Buddy was politically conservative and wasn't shy about voicing his opinions, while Nancy leaned more liberal, holding strong to her own beliefs. Imagine working side by side with someone who stands for everything you disagree with. That was the reality for Nancy and Buddy. According to other cast members, their disagreements often turned into heated debates, lasting for weeks at a time. Despite the tension between them, both actors remained professional. The show was a massive success, and they both knew their roles were key to that success. The Beverly Hillbillies continued to be a ratings powerhouse, and its popularity never really waned. People loved the Clampetts and their hilarious misunderstandings in the world of high society. Nancy's Miss Jane became one of the most beloved characters on the show. She wasn't flashy or over the top. She was just relatable, the kind of person who worked hard, tried to do the right thing, and often found herself caught in the middle of someone else's mess. As for Buddy, his portrayal of Jed Clampett was the steady anchor in a sea of chaos. Whether he was making sense of Beverly Hills high society or helping Granny cook up another batch of moonshine, Jed was the calm center of the Clampett universe. Though their real-life tension never quite disappeared, the magic they created together on screen was undeniable. And even with all the success, it was clear that Nancy and Buddy's complicated relationship would always remain a part of their shared history. Some say that as the show went on, the dynamic between Nancy and Buddy worsened. It wasn't just about politics, it was a clash of personalities that created tension behind the scenes. Nancy was sharp, intellectually driven, and never backed down from a fight. On the other hand, Buddy was charming, no doubt, but also stubborn, which made for a volatile combination when their opposing forces collided. Sparks flew between them, and the intensity was undeniable. The situation wasn't helped by the fact that they were often kept in close proximity on set. As Miss Jane and Jed, Nancy and Buddy shared a considerable amount of screen time together. While they appeared to smile and laugh in front of the cameras, there was an underlying current of frustration that viewers who were paying attention could pick up on. Donna Douglas, who portrayed Ellie Mae, once mentioned how Nancy and Buddy would argue for weeks about their differing views. Can you imagine how tense that set must have been? Despite the friction, both Nancy and Buddy remained professionals, and their personal differences didn't interfere with the show's success. Maintaining a civil working relationship with someone you constantly clash with is no easy feat, but they managed to make it work. The audience never saw the tension that simmered beneath the surface. By the time the Beverly Hillbillies ended its run, the show had become a cultural phenomenon. Its influence still felt in numerous shows that followed. For Nancy and Buddy, however, the end of the show didn't signify the end of their complicated dynamic. Their differences would continue to shape their interactions, even when the cameras stopped rolling. In 1984, years after the show had wrapped, Nancy decided to forge a completely new path: politics. At 62, she ran for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. Although many questioned whether an actress could successfully transition into politics, Nancy believed she had something valuable to offer. After all, Ronald Reagan had made a similar leap, hadn't he? Running as a Democrat in Pennsylvania's 9th congressional district, Nancy faced a tough challenge. The district was solidly Republican, and her opponent, Bud Shuster, had already served 6 terms. But Nancy wasn't the type to shy away from a challenge. She campaigned relentlessly, connecting with voters and sharing her ideas for change, despite knowing the odds were stacked against her. What she didn't expect, however, was for Buddy Ebsen to get involved, and not on her side. Buddy, with no ties to Pennsylvania or the race itself, volunteered to record a radio ad for her opponent. In the ad, he accused Nancy of being too liberal and using her celebrity status to manipulate voters. This wasn't just a difference of opinion, it felt personal. Nancy felt blindsided, and the betrayal cut deep. For years, she and Buddy had clashed, but this felt like a new level of animosity. Nancy was vocal about her hurt, later expressing that Buddy had no right to get involved and should have stayed out of it. "He's not the kindly old Jed Clampett you saw on the show," she said in one interview, frustration clear in her voice. She also made it clear that, despite their differences, she would never have done something like that to him. You could still hear the pain in her words, even years later. The radio ad didn't help Nancy's campaign. In fact, it might have harmed it. She lost the election by a significant margin, with her opponent taking more than 66% of the vote. While Nancy said she didn't blame Buddy for her defeat, the sting of his actions stayed with her. She took some time away from Pennsylvania to clear her mind and process everything, returning only when she had fully come to terms with what had happened. Buddy, for his part, didn't seem to regret his actions at the time. He firmly believed in what he had said about Nancy and stood by his decision. But as the years passed, it seemed even Buddy began to feel some remorse. Toward the end of his life, he expressed regret over the ad and the way their feud had escalated. Unfortunately, by that point, it was too late to repair the damage. Nancy and Buddy had minimal contact after the campaign, and their eventual reconciliation was brief. In the years following the election, Nancy found solace in teaching, a passion that allowed her to channel her vast knowledge and experience into something meaningful. She became an artist in residence at Juniata College, a small liberal arts school nestled in the quiet countryside of Pennsylvania. There, she taught acting classes and inspired countless students who passed through her classroom doors, leaving behind a legacy of her own, far removed from the tensions that once defined her relationship with Buddy. Nancy's time at Juniata College marked a peaceful and fulfilling chapter in her life, a welcome respite from the intense spotlight of Hollywood and the turmoil of politics. Here, she discovered a community that appreciated her not just for her fame, but for her deep insights and compassionate nature. Her students often spoke with admiration about her, not just for her renowned role in Hollywood, but for the genuine care she showed in helping others grow. She was more than an actress. She was a mentor. Nancy's lessons were infused with humor and heart, making her students feel that the stage was a welcoming place for everyone, regardless of their background. It's easy to picture her, with a smile on her face, sharing anecdotes from her days on the Beverly Hillbillies, seamlessly weaving in life lessons that applied both on and off the stage. Although Nancy transitioned to teaching, she never fully distanced herself from acting. She continued to perform in local theater productions and occasionally made guest appearances on television. It was clear that acting remained a passion, and her later work showed a profound appreciation for the art of storytelling. But beyond her craft, Nancy lived a full, vibrant life outside the entertainment world. She had an incredible ability to connect with people, whether students, friends, or neighbors, and she embraced every moment of her time away from the spotlight. However, in 1990, Nancy was faced with an unforeseen challenge, a diagnosis of cancer. Even in the face of this, she showed the same resilience she had always been known for. She continued to teach and remain active in her community for as long as her health allowed. Those who knew her described her as brave and strong, traits she had demonstrated time and time again throughout her life. In 1991, Nancy passed away, leaving behind a legacy that transcended her role as Miss Jane Hathaway. Her story was one of perseverance, creativity, and the determination to never be defined by just one chapter in her life. Meanwhile, Buddy Ebsen's journey in his later years followed a different path. Though he remained in the entertainment industry, his workload slowed down with age. After the Beverly Hillbillies ended, Buddy continued acting, taking on roles in films and television. He even starred in the popular detective series Barnaby Jones, which ran for several years and kept him visible to the public. Yet, despite his diverse career, the world couldn't help but associate him with Jed Clampett. The character's homespun charm and iconic catchphrase became larger than life, and people often saw Buddy as Jed, even when he was portraying completely different roles. While he didn't seem to mind the association outwardly, it wasn't always easy. Imagine working hard to establish a career full of variety and talent, only to be remembered for one role. But Buddy handled it with grace, frequently appearing at events and interviews where he happily reminisced about his time on the Beverly Hillbillies. Later in life, he wrote a memoir, sharing stories about Hollywood, his career, and, of course, his infamous feud with Nancy. Outside of his acting career, Buddy had plenty to keep him occupied. He was an accomplished sailor, spending a significant portion of his free time on the water. He also explored his writing, penning novels that gave him a creative outlet beyond the world of acting. Buddy was a man of many talents, and he made sure to stay engaged in life as he grew older. In his personal life, he enjoyed a long and happy marriage to Dorothy, his third wife, and spent his later years surrounded by family. He lived to the remarkable age of 95, passing away in 2003. By that time, most of his peers had already passed on, and Buddy was one of the last living connections to the golden age of television. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy endured through the countless reruns of the Beverly Hillbillies and the memories of those who had worked alongside him. Looking back at their story, it's clear that Nancy and Buddy were two individuals with strong personalities who, despite their differences, couldn't quite find common ground. They were both passionate, talented, and fiercely opinionated. Their differences created a rift that seemed difficult to bridge. Yet, it's impossible to ignore the magic they created together on screen as Jed Clampett and Miss Jane Hathaway. Their chemistry brought laughter and warmth to millions of viewers, a testament to their professionalism, dedication, and undeniable talent. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos and celebrity news like this.